As the leader of the Booner Pack, I lead from the front.
All right, boys. Lock in.
It's our core foundation, man. Grit.
I'm fired up. I'm fired the fuck up, boys.
It's pumping right now. It's got my juice pumping, boys.
Saturday mornings, crunch time, sports. We are back. It's been a minute. I feel like it's been maybe 2 weeks since I've done this show. Had a couple things to take care of these past couple weekends, but boy, oh boy, we have a lot to talk about. Man, is this music louder than it usually is, guys? A little out of it this morning. I mean, that Tigers game last night was just kind of embodied everything they've been doing for the past 3 months, leaving runners in scoring position, putting their pitchers in high leverage situations they don't need to be in, and the pitchers not being able to hold a lead. I am sick to my stomach with this team. And we talked about it a little bit on the show yesterday. This team does not deserve to make the playoffs. They don't. From top to bottom, from the front office to the players to the ownership, they do not deserve to make the playoffs. But we washed yesterday with Houston and Cleveland, so I guess that's a good thing. But, I mean, I would like to be more happy with the wash, but that's a game you could have capitalized. Got to win. Put yourself in a better position for the playoffs and the division. But thank you, everybody, for tuning in. We got a packed show for you guys today. No Gentry today. He'll probably be back next week, but I have two amazing guests today. We're going to have Chris Castellani on around like 9:20, I believe. And then we have one of my good friends, a guy that I've been following on Twitter for a long time, ever since I started making content. This is one of the guys, one of the first guys I followed. His name is Shane, the man in the Michigan hat. So I'm excited to see what he has to say about the Tigers and, Lions. And I'm going to have him give you guys some college football picks because he's sharp. He's sharp. And there's nothing we like more than a good college football bettor. But guys, the Tigers. And I feel like a lot of people feel this way, but I do especially. Every time they lose a game, Scott Harris's face just immediately gets embedded into my brain. And I'm thinking, what do you think he is thinking right now? Watching this happen. After sitting there at the trade deadline and doing essentially nothing. Yeah, Kyle Finnegan was a good pickup at the trade deadline, but he was hurt for a while. But Rafael Montero, he only pitches in blowouts. Charlie Morton's not on the team anymore. Chris Paddock, who it seemed like Scott Harris was ecstatic to get, stinks. He didn't trade for one position player. How does that make any sense? And I said it yesterday on the show. It's like Scott Harris has this thing where he loves the idea of an unsung hero. And by an unsung hero, I'm going to bring up a guy like, let's say, like Zach McKinstry. Like, those guys your lineup can't be full of those guys. You need more talent on this baseball team. And shout out Nobody with the $2. Shout out. Let's go, Caleb, talking ball to start Saturday. Yeah, I mean, I wish I was able to come out and talk more positive about everything, but this is just a ridiculous display of baseball by the Tigers. Tigers damage my brain. Greg, I'm right there with you, man. I'm right there with you. I mean, it's a struggle to watch this team. It's a struggle to watch this team. 3 for 13 with runners in scoring position yesterday. You're not going to win baseball games like that. You're just not. I mean, and Chris Castellani, who we're going to have on the show in a little bit here, That fourth inning is when I think he said this yesterday. That fourth inning is when I knew it's like, I mean, yeah, you mustered 3 with the bases loaded, but you had the middle of your order up. Man, you should have done a lot more with that inning. And that kind of just personifies everything that the Tigers have done these past couple months. Phil, it's over. I think I'm right there with you, man. I do. I think I'm right there with you. And a guy I want to talk about, and a friend of the channel, Flannel Sam, has some strong opinions about Riley Green. You know, he's Riley Green's biggest fan. Look, I think Riley Green is a good player, but he can't be the best player on a really good team. He just can't. I get it. I get it. 36 homers, 100-something RBIs, but man, your guy can't strike out 200 times and do nothing in clutch spots, because that's what Riley Green does. Nothing in big spots. Nothing. You need, like, look at the Guardians, who have our number. They have a guy in J-Ram that opposing teams are terrified of. I don't think opposing teams are terrified of Riley Green. And am I sitting here telling you I think we should look to trade Riley Green? No, I don't. But he can't be your guy in the middle of the order. Green swings like a windmill. I mean, there has to be some swing adjustments or something. He has no feel for the strike zone. Now, let me ask you guys this, and I'm curious what you guys have to say in the chat, because, you know, I brought it up kind of, you know, right when I started the show, and, you know, I made a TikTok about it. A lot of different opinions in the comments on the TikTok. Do you guys want this team to make the playoffs? Like, as a fan, like, obviously, yeah, anything could happen in October. When you get in there, when you get into the dance, you know, you could spark some magic. Anything could happen. You could win a series, and then who knows what could happen. But at this point, do you guys even feel like they deserve it? Anybody? Like, anybody in this organization, do you believe this Tigers team deserves to make the playoffs? Because I don't, and I don't see a reason why you would. I mean, it is, and look, playoff baseball in Detroit's awesome. But they're just not built to win in October. I don't want to see them get in October and just get swept by either the Guardians or the Yankees. Their bullpen's no good. They don't hit with runners in scoring position. They don't, like, steal bases. They're not playing playoff baseball right now. They have one pitcher with a brain, and Terry School, but shout out Casey Mize. What an outing from him yesterday. Just an absolute, it's disgusting that he couldn't pull, that the Tigers couldn't pull out a win for him. But I want to hear what you guys have to say about if you even want the Tigers to play in October, or you just want to pack it up, call it a season. Because this is getting out of hand. Phil, how much of this is on the manager and AJ Hinch? I have had sympathy for AJ Hinch since he's gotten here, because I feel like he hasn't been given the tools he needs to really make a push. I don't think the front office is giving him enough to really make a push for, you know, in October. I think he has exceeded expectations since he's gotten here with what he was given. I have sympathy for AJ Hinch. Now, do I think some of the things he does is not that smart? Yeah, but that's every manager. But I can't put a ton of the blame on AJ Hinch. Xavier said the trade deadline showed you the position that AJ was put into. Exactly. AJ might have been on his hands and knees in Scott Harris's office and says, please, man, we just need a jolt. Give me another right-handed bat. Give me more high-leverage relievers. Man, just get rid of that 11th prospect and go get me someone that I could be really confident in the 7th, 8th, 9th inning. And Scott Harris just didn't give him that, which is incredibly embarrassing. And I mean, this trade deadline, I could talk about it all day. That was the worst trade deadline I've ever seen by a contending team, maybe ever. It was completely pathetic. I mean, your shot clock trade to end the trade deadline was Charlie Morton, a 40-year-old Charlie Morton, who's not on the team anymore. You're telling me there wasn't another starting pitcher you couldn't have gone out and get? Not one. Charlie Morton's your guy. That's the and Chris Paddock. Those are the two guys to help you out in this rotation. And I made a post on Twitter talking about the trade deadline, kind of looking back, saying, I mean, I said this when the trade deadline happened. We're going to look back at this trade deadline and say, what the fuck, man? Like, we were the best team in baseball, or one of the best teams in baseball. We had a lot of opportunity to not necessarily go make a splash move, but make this team better at the deadline. And Scott Harris didn't. And I had people in the comments saying, what do you want him to do? Trade for a whole different lineup? No, man. At least trade for one bat, one right-handed bat. It's crazy. It's bizarre. And then if you go to his offseason, Gleyber Torres, yeah, he was an all-star. But he's not been very good, this second half of the year. And he's gone in free agency. Like, he's not a long-term piece. You could look back at the Maeda deal 2 years ago. Not on the team. Man. It's really easy to point fingers. It is. And I don't know how much of this falls on Chris Ilitch. Maybe not giving Scott Harris the resources he needs to put together a good roster. Or not a good roster, but give him the resources he needs to bring players in that are really going to contribute. But I mean, Scott Harris's infatuation, if that's even a word, if I even said that right, of his prospects is bizarre. Because look, I get it. McGonigal, Clark, Briseño, those guys might be untouchable. Honestly, if Scott Harris did come out and say there's some guys in this organization that, are just not going to be on the move. And those three guys, I agree with. I think those guys are going to be three really good ball players. But, man, you couldn't have traded your 10th, 11th prospect for someone that's going to contribute to this baseball team. Guys, he didn't trade for a fucking position player. That is bizarre. That is bizarre. And I said this at the trade deadline as well. You couldn't have looked at trades for guys like Jace Young. I mean, I don't know what their trade value have been, but or a guy like Malloy, who you refused to bring up for a good majority of the year. Speaking of Malloy, leadoff double yesterday in the 9th off of Aroldis Chapman. Tigers left him stranded on third. Makes me sick to my stomach even thinking about it. I'm not going to lie to you here, guys. The more I talk about the Tigers, my heart starts to sink. There's like a pit in my stomach. Because 3 months ago, when I was coming on Saturday morning to talk ball with you guys, I was so excited to talk about this team. There was like a moment where they felt like America's team. Everyone was behind them. I mean, this is just a total collapse. I mean, who else better to talk about this than the best Detroit Tigers content creator out there, host of Chris and Company, Mr. Chris Castellani. Chris, it's good to talk to you, man. Look, I wish it was under better circumstances.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you this to start off before we get to the actual baseball stuff. How, by the way, post-game videos have been unbelievable. good. I mean, they've been fantastic. The one last night, the one that was going around, Cleveland radio and everything, that was fantastic. How are you just feeling mentally as a fan? I mean, after these past 2 months, I gotta check on you, man, because me myself not feeling so great.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I'll be real with you. It's my sentiments are the sentiments that other people have. It's devastating. It's really devastating, and it's something that I said a few nights ago, which is I don't think there's been a team in the history of Detroit sports where public sentiment has changed on them as quickly as it has with this one. And I just heard you talking about it. I mean, this was, for this brief window, this jumpstart, fun, gritty, young, up-and-coming team that has completely hit a wall. And I think it's not just this like, kind of empty feeling of seeing this team collapse. I think that there's almost this feeling of like we've been duped, like so much of what we watched was a lie. And look, this is I'm going to continue to say, look, the end of this story is not written, but man, oh man, I mean, it feels like every time that they're given an opportunity to punch back, every time they're given an opportunity to kind of get off the mat, we see them revert back to the same things that they've been going through over the last several weeks. So, I mean, it's a pennant chase. It's going to be October baseball, so I'm going to be a mess regardless. But this particular instance, it hits a lot harder because it feels like so much of what we had to be excited about was kind of fugazi.
Yeah, Chris. Well, I think you heard me talk about it a little bit, and I annoy myself talking about it, but I think it's a point that I think a lot of Tigers fans should look back at, and I think a lot of Tigers fans is the trade deadline of this year. It really bothered me, even at the time when we were the best team in baseball. You had an opportunity to really make a jolt, at least maybe at a bat, add some more high leverage relievers. I look at that trade deadline and I say, I mean, what the fuck, man? I mean, what? I mean, there you have prospects out the wazoo that you could have gotten, players that are going to contribute to this baseball team. Do you think Scott Harris kind of feels the same way looking back at it? Or do you think he still has that maybe like smartest guy in the room mentality where he's like, no, I mean, I'm confident in these prospects. I don't want to get rid of them. Or do you think he's looking back saying maybe I should have done a little bit more for this baseball team?
Honestly, it's a really good question. I don't have the definitive answer to it. I honestly don't. Here's my theory is I think he genuinely believed that he could take on, or that this organization could take on pretty much anybody, get the best version of them, have them be successful, have them be a key piece of this organization. Like I think when he traded for Paddock and Morton, I think he genuinely believed these guys are going to be steals. Because you look back to what happened last season where you had all these kind of projects, all these guys who'd just been called up, and they were all pitching good baseball. I think he believed that would be enough. So I think that's part of it. The other part of it is the other part that you brought up, which is I think that they're so in love with their current prospect core. And to a certain extent, I understand that. But this has been the thing, and this existed with Avila, and it existed with Harris, and I've never gotten. Look, I feel like there's a middle ground between doing nothing and trading McGonigal, Clark, and Brisena. Like Absolutely. I don't understand why there's been this all or nothing approach that we've had at these deadlines over the last decade, where it's like, look, I am in favor. I genuinely think the guys that they have coming up through the system can be wonderful players, even stars. I don't want you to make a reckless decision that compromises your future. I totally understand. At the same time, there's players available that can make this team better that I don't even know if you made the call about. And, you go back to pitching. I mean, people are going to keep bringing this up, but look at Verlander's numbers over the last 2 months. Been really good. And I'll tell you what, he's been a fuck ton better than Chris Paddock. So it's like, you look at these, you look at the guys, the pitches that you kind of watched go by, and it feels like a giant missed opportunity.
Yeah. You talk about the pitching, and I think it's safe to say that pitching chaos yesterday, it was a one-off.
Yes.
I loved it last year. It was awesome. I mean, it seemed like you could bring in me out of the bullpen and Chris Fetter can turn me into a Wellness Chapman.
Yeah.
He was a wizard last year, but obviously a one-off. Who out of this bullpen right now do you see a legitimate, not necessarily core piece, but a piece that you could see the Tigers hanging on for the future? Because in my opinion, there's not many. There's maybe one or two guys in this pen that I could see pitching for this team in we'll call it 2 years.
It's a good question, man. I think, and I am going to answer, I'll just say straight up, I think that there needs to be a reevaluation in regard to the type of pitcher that they want to have come up through the system as a reliever. Starters, it's a bit different, but I think that there's been this huge focus on strike throwing, this huge focus on sinkers, when once again, this has been a pen for, even last year when they had success, this has been a pen that has not had a heavy amount of swing and miss, and that showed its, reared its ugly head consistently over the last few months. I still think, and like he's cost him some games here down the stretch, I still think you stick with Will Vest in some high leverage role. At the end of the day, this is a guy that came up through your system, a guy that you developed, a guy that's given you some really good baseball. And of course, what have you done for me lately? He's had some rough outings, but he's consistently gotten better each of the last few years. Beyond that, I mean, Finnegan will be gone. We've seen regression from Tyler Holton. You have these guys like Herter and Hannafy who are just maybes. Like, I don't think that they're high leverage guys by any means. Canley will be gone. I think that there's the other thing that you need to look at is the fact that you've had some pitching depth develop in the starting rotation. Somebody's going to be the odd man looking in, and I think that one of these starters, whether it's Montero, whether it's Mize, who obviously was very good last night, one of these guys is going to end up in a bullpen role in some capacity, just because you need. I think that's what we've seen with Melton. Melton's kind of been forced into that long relief role simply because they don't have people who can come out of the pen and miss bats. So it's concerning. The one defense, I guess, is that bullpens as a whole in this game are very fragile and weird. There's certain instances where teams will have a great pen one year, and then they'll be bad the next year. I'm not saying it's out of the realm of possibility that they see some sort of turnaround, but I think that organizationally there needs to be a philosophical change in some ways about the kind of pitchers that are coming up through the system, because I just don't think they have a lot of overpowering guys.
Yeah, and of course we might have some playoff baseball here, and I hate to look forward into the future, but there's obviously a lot of holes on this baseball team. Probably a fifth starter, maybe even a fourth and fifth starter, bullpen help, a right-handed third baseman would be nice. And I know the guys during the week, Jeff and Booner, they kind of asked you the same question. How do you think they go about addressing these holes on this team? Do you think? Because I don't even want to ask you if it's going to be spending big in free agency, because I don't think it will. Do you think it will be the same philosophy, bringing in guys of the caliber like a Gio Urshela or guys like that, coming in to fill these spots? Or do you think they're going to do it with the prospects we keep hearing about? And like, for example, maybe like a Howie Lee or guys like that. How do you think they're going to address these holes in the team in the offseason?
Man, it's really tough to answer, because and this is where I wish that I had, I could be in the kind of negotiation room. Mm. I don't know how they view this collapse. I don't know if they view it as panic the way that we do and the way that they should, or if they simply view it as natural regression. Maybe they just look at this as, this was always a team that was overachieving. We're still in a good place. We still continue to stay the course. I brought it up in my post-game video last night, and I don't, even though it's a kind of a victim of the moment thing, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. And I think it's the fact that, look, to Harris's credit, he knows the kind of player that he wants here. He knows what the philosophy is. He knows what he wants to do in regard to the position players that come up through the system. Right now, in the heart of your lineup, you have several guys who are boom or bust guys that don't abide by that philosophy. And this is not me, pounding the table again and saying, I think it's necessary that you trade Green or necessary that you trade Torkelson. It is me saying that I think there's this kind of round peg in a square hole thing where you have several guys that are your, star players, quote unquote, that are your big run producers who do not control the strike zone the way that you want these guys to control the strike zone. And I think that they're gonna look this offseason potentially to see if there's a possibility to go out and add some players and have there be a roster shakeup where they can acquire some guys who fit more into this system. Because, and this is just the truth. Riley Green, Torkelson, Parker Meadows, these are not Scott Harris players. These guys all came up in a previous regime. And I think that there's a lot to look forward to with the players that are coming up through the system. At the same time, you got to win now. And I think that there's going to be some, I'm not saying there's going to be the big move, but I think there's going to be some evaluation about a potential roster shakeup, just because we've seen it the last several nights. We've seen it during this collapse. The amount of guys left on base and the lack of contact being made with runners in scoring position has absolutely destroyed this team. And if those are the kind of players that you're going to have in the heart of your order, you're not going to win anything.
Yeah, I mean, I think you make a great point with, I mean, I think you ask a great question. I'm curious to know kind of how that front office feels about this collapse, because it seems like, I mean, it doesn't seem like, it's kind of almost like a fact at this point that Scott Harris is a pretty patient guy.
Yeah.
So you're right. He might be looking at this as just regression, normal regression with this young team. But I like, if he comes out and says that at the end of the year presser, I just can't take that shit. I can't do it, because this was just honestly the worst collapse I've seen in maybe not even just sports history, just history in general.
Yeah.
No, if they go in and make the playoffs, go ahead.
Well, no, let me just add that there needs to be some sense of urgency and some move that's made. I'm not saying, I've already talked about, I don't think Hinch is getting fired. I don't think that'd even be a good idea. I think, you can't run it back with the exact same scheme and expect fans to buy into this idea that you're continuing to move in the right direction. Yeah.
I mean, look, I think there are things to be excited for in this young core, in Riley Green, Torkelson, Carp, Job, even when he comes back from his injury. But I mean, you gotta add complementary pieces to those guys. You have to. I don't believe, and as good as Riley Green has been at points in this year, I don't think at 25 years old next year he can be your guy in the middle of this order. I just don't. I think I don't even know what the solution is, because they're not going to go out and they're not going to go out and spend money in this offseason. So Riley Green might be your guy at the end of this year, or at the next year. I think he's going to be the guy in your middle of your order. Yeah. But I mean, you just touched on him a little bit, and you talked about him a lot in your post game yesterday. And I see you tweeting a lot about him, because I think you're getting a lot of flack for it, and I don't think you should. Riley Green. I mean, just the strikeouts are an issue. The lack of clutch hitting out of Riley Green. Do you think there needs to be like a swing mechanic change in the offseason, or just a total different approach at the plate that he's going to have to work on this offseason? Like, what's the change for Riley Green that he has to make?
Well, the answer to that question is yes. There needs to be an adjustment. There needs to be a change. I have, and it's weird because I've become the poster child of the guy, like the Riley Green hate club. And the fact that that's not, first of all, it's not playing well. So I'm going to criticize him. That's not what I do. But secondly, it's more so the fact that I think that there is a serious problem in his approach at the plate, and even beyond that, his knowledge of the strike zone. One thing I've said is that, look, the strikeouts exist, and it's bad, and it's even record-breaking. He's shattered the franchise record for most strikeouts in the season. There's a lot of very effective hitters in this game that strike out a lot. Judge strikes out a lot. Schwarber strikes out a lot. I can be willing to accept the high amount of swing and miss if the knowledge of the strike zone was good and the power remained consistent. 36 home runs is fine. It's not Schwarber numbers. It's not Judge numbers. It's not good enough to mask the consistent swing and miss. And ultimately, you have these players in this league who strike out a lot, but what they do is they get on base. And when you look at Riley Green, and I got the numbers up here, since July 2nd, this is a 72-game sample size. So we're almost talking about half the campaign. His on-base percentage is .275. I mean, that's legitimately that's like Javi Baez levels last
Mhm.
year. Now, of course, he makes up for it with, he's got 15 home runs in that span, and the slug has been fine, but 93 strikeouts to 22 walks in that period. I don't know if it's the swing and I don't know if he's willing to change his swing, because the one thing that I think he is afraid of, and I get this, is sacrificing any power. I think that he's afraid if there is a change in swing mechanics, the barrel rate will go down, and he's going to hit for less power. Okay, that's fine. I think that what needs to happen is there needs to be a reevaluation in regard to his understanding of the strike zone, and if he can figure that out, because the guy is chasing more pitches than he's ever chased. He's walking less than he's ever walked. And I think that, he's at a very kind of, big crossroads in his career where it's clear in the second half of the season, leagues kind of figured him out a little bit. And we see this happen to all good young players. Either he adjusts and he takes off and becomes the player we want him to be, or he just kind of remains this fine, run producing guy that, is going to strike out 200 times a year. But I think there's going to need to be changes, similar to what I talked about with Scott Harris on the makeup of the roster. I don't think Riley Green can run it back next season with this exact same philosophy that he has as a hitter, and the fans and the rest of the team is going to feel good about where they're at. Because the one thing, and this will just be my last point about him, the reason I focus in on Riley Green so much is because I am certain, and I'm not the only person to point this out, he is the only position player on this team to me that has star potential. And the numbers I just gave you, not only are they not star numbers, I mean, they're legitimately, that's a downward trend that's legitimately concerning. And if he's not hitting, there's going to be a lot of trouble producing runs in the middle of this lineup. So yes, I do think there needs to be a change.
Yeah, well, Chris, this is a conversation I have refused to have these past couple of years, especially last year when it was a hot topic, when we weren't looking that great in July. And when the trade deadline came around, trading Tarek Skubal.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, I'm very open to hear both sides of the argument. Kind of where are you at now after this big collapse, and just kind of knowing that the Tigers are not going to give this guy a $400 million contract. It doesn't have to be this offseason, or I guess it does need to be this offseason.
Yeah.
What do you think the possibility is of the Tigers trading Tarek Skubal?
It is, the percentage chance of it has gone up significantly in the last several weeks. And I had a conversation with Cody Stavenhagen about this on Chris and Company, and I think that he made some excellent points, and I think it's something that we're going to have to look at here over the next several weeks and months. My stance on it from the beginning has been, and I said this when this team was winning, and most people agreed with me, is if you feel like next season you have the opportunity with Tarek Skubal to put together a roster that can make a deep run, fight for the World Series, fight for the pennant, what have you, you stick with him. He walks in free agency. Maybe you make him a deal or an offer. Somebody else makes him a bigger offer. He leaves. You get the compensatory pick, and then you kind of move on. Teams lose guys in free agency all the time. It stinks, but that's just kind of the way it is. What has happened over the last several months is that some very obvious large holes have been exposed in this roster that I don't think you can plug up in just one free agency cycle this upcoming offseason. And I think it's multiple pieces that you're going to need. This is where the business side of thing comes in. I love Tarek. We love Tarek. It would be devastating. At the same time, you need to continue to find and develop guys who are making contact with the ball and good offensive players. And the fastest way to do that would be to give some team an offer for Tarek Skubal in the offseason. And I want to just and I'm going to keep hammering this point home, because I think what people are concerned about, and I get it, trust me, I get it, is the idea of saying that trading Tarek equals another rebuild. That's not the case. If you're smart with it, it's not the case. In fact, the Brewers are the prime example of this. The Brewers traded
Corbin Burns.
My God. It's early in the morning. I was about to say Chase Burns.
Yeah.
Corbin Burns at the beginning of last season, with 1 year left on his deal, ended up winning the division, I believe, or made the playoffs at the very least. We've seen the Rays do this, where they've traded high with guys. We've seen the Guardians do this when they did it with Bauer and Kluber. You can still have a very competitive major league product next season even if you trade Tarek Skubal. And the one thing that Cody said, and I agreed with him, is regardless of what happens, the Tarek Skubal saga, whether it's ends in free agency, whether it ends in a trade, is going to end up being what defines Scott Harris's tenure here. If they make a move in this offseason and you trade Tarek for 2 or 3 pieces that end up becoming core pieces that help you out, we could be looking back on this as the moment things started to turn around. Or, similar to the Verlander trade with Avila, we could be looking back on it as the moment where things really started to crumble. So I don't know where their head is at. I do know that the percentage chance of it happening has gone up exponentially over the last several weeks.
Yeah. Well, Chris, I'm going to leave you with this question here. Kind of on a positive note, Bryce Underwood in Michigan. Bryce Underwood, I have been extremely impressed out of Bryce Underwood, and I think every Michigan fan should. Big win over Nebraska last week. What are your expectations for Sharon Moore, Bryce Underwood, and the Michigan Wolverines going forward this year?
The Nebraska game was very encouraging. And I think that a great expectation to have this year is to get to the playoff. I think the schedule allows it. I think if you have a 10-2 team, even if you don't make it to Indy for the Big Ten championship, I think that the odds of you going to the playoff are great. It's been very encouraging. I think that there's obviously still some very difficult games on the schedule. You have to go to USC, which is obviously not going to be a cakewalk. You have to go to East Lansing. You have to play Ohio State. But what has been the most encouraging and optimistic thing to me is the fact that, look, Bryce has been very impressive. And even when he hasn't been impressive, it's very obvious, like, just the skill set and the body and the intangibles is something that we haven't seen before. And there's a lot to work with. What has, allowed me to kind of breathe this sigh of relief is the fact that it's very clear there are pieces around Bryce Underwood that are going to allow for him to be successful. The offensive line's gotten better the last few weeks. You have 2 excellent running backs. I know that there's some issues with the receiving core and that those are legitimate with the drops, but it's better than it was a year ago with guys like McCauley and Samaj being where they're at. And, hopefully Marlon Klein coming along. I think that I think the play calling's gotten better. So I think that the pieces around him are helping him. And there's so much focus on Bryce, but it's like, and look, number 1 player in the country, getting paid a ton of money. I get it. But the guy just turned 18 years old. There has to be a core around him that's going to help him succeed. And I think when you take into account the weapons that he has offensively and the really good defense that Wink Martindale's got on the other side, I think it's allowed for this team to be a well-oiled machine again that it simply wasn't last season. They weren't able to play complementary football. They weren't able to wear teams down because the offense was, consistently getting 3 and outs. The defense was consistently tired. It looks like that's changed this year. They have a bye week right now, and they have Wisconsin coming into Ann Arbor next weekend, which I can't believe I'm saying this about Wisconsin, but is basically a tune-up game with the way that things have been going for Luke Fickell's program. So they're in a very good place. I think the Nebraska game was a major turning point for them in a lot of ways because, you lose the Oklahoma game and it looked very ugly. I thought, despite not having a coach again, it was about they played a clean game. It's a tough environment to go win at, and I think they've put themselves in position to hopefully be a playoff team here in Bryce Underwood's freshman year.
Yeah, well, Chris, thank you very much for joining me this morning. Obviously, go check out Chris and Company. Follow Chris on Twitter. And by the way, congrats on 10K on TikTok.
Thanks, man.
That is huge. He's doing great things, so make sure to go check out Chris on everything and check out Chris and Company. Chris, have a great rest of your Saturday. Hopefully the Tigers can pull one out later.
Yeah, thanks, man. I appreciate it. And obviously, I appreciate everybody out there. This has been a very emotional week, but the support from all you guys has been fantastic. I'll talk to you guys real soon.
Yes, sir. See you, Chris. He's the man. He's the man. If you need anything Tigers related, you need to know just really anything about anything. I mean, what a smart guy Chris is. Couldn't ask for a better guest with kind of the state of the Tigers. Because I don't have all the answers, but sometimes it almost feels like Chris does. He's one smart dude. And I trust his opinions, and I think the rest of you should as well. Yeah, man. I mean, I'm seeing some chats in here. I'm seeing some is that a science question I see here? Enzyme. What are we talking about here, Phil? What are we talking about here, Phil? What's going on? But yeah, guys, make sure to go check out Chris on everything. And guys, this guest I'm bringing on here, and I brought him up in the beginning of the show. This guy's one of my favorite follows on Twitter. right when I started making content, this is one of the first guys that I interacted with, followed, and I think you guys should too. I'm going to have him come on here, talk about some Tigers, Lions, and I'm going to have him give you some college football picks. We got Shane, Michigan Hats. Shane, what's going on, man? Long time no see, honestly. I think the last time we did a show, I had you on when I was doing that first show I was doing, and we were on like Zoom. I mean, that felt like forever ago, but man, how we doing today?
Doing great, man. It's good to be back. I was listening to the show earlier. You, Chris, all that. You got a lot going on. Really good show. So I'm glad to be back.
I mean, when there's crisis in Detroit sports, you're one of the guys I look to because I think you're not only reasonable, but you kind of tell it how it is, and that's exactly the type of person I think the people need to hear today. I'm going to start with this. And just, I guess it's just a broad question. Just your overall thoughts on the Tigers, man, because this has been a pretty fucking pathetic collapse. One of the worst collapses in not only sports, but world history. I've said that a few times. I guess my question to you is, do you even want to see this team in the playoffs at this point?
Boy, I don't know if this makes me a bad fan. People are gonna have different views. I don't think you can tell people how to be a fan. So, I get to the point with my teams of just self-loathing, self-hatred, where when things look this bad, I don't want them to win. And I justify that. I guess the reason for that is I hope that sometimes things have to get so bad that it forces a shake-up, right? Like maybe this is what it takes for Scott Harris to get his head out of his ass and actually do something at a deadline for once in his career, maybe. Of course, I still would like to see them in the playoffs. To me, though, if you don't win this division, because we've had this streak of how many years since we've won the division and all that, and just the way it ended, I don't really have any interest in watching them back into a playoff spot and lose in a wild card round. It just doesn't interest me. And maybe I'll look like an idiot. Maybe they back into the playoffs and things reset when you get into the playoffs and they look a lot different. They win a couple series. I just don't anticipate that. And so to me, I almost wonder if the humiliation is better.
I agree to a certain extent. I mean, if we have to go into that wild card series and play Cleveland and get swept, I'm going to cut my balls off. I mean, I can't, I'm not going to be able to watch it. They just have our number, man. And it's crazy. That's the way it's going to shake up, is that the team that just caught up to us in the AL Central, blowing this 15.5 game lead, we're going to have to face them in the wild card series. That's just how baseball works. And it's a terrible game. The baseball gods they're rude. They show no mercy, but that's the position the Tigers put themselves in. Well, I want to talk about a good team, though.
Ooh.
I want to talk about a good team. The Detroit Lions, huge win over Baltimore last week. A lot of encouraging things. I thought the offensive line played really well. Obviously, the defensive line, the linebacker play, 7 sacks. Looking forward to week 4. What are some things you're looking for from the Detroit Lions this week against Cleveland?
Yeah, I mean, obviously the main thing, you just want to win the game.
Yeah.
I don't have I hate saying stuff like this because I'm putting this out there, but I don't have a lot of fear of losing this game. To me, the big one is just, like you said, things are clicking. Things look like they're turning around from how they looked week 1. Continue to see progress and avoid injuries. That's the only 2 things I'm really looking at when you're a big favorite like this. Ideally, this is a game where you can pull some starters later in the game. I know that's hard to do in the NFL. You can't count on that. But yeah, I mean, that's still a scary defensive front you're going against. You still have Myles Garrett, and kind of the one thing that can derail your season at this point is a catastrophic injury. And so a lot of that's just play well up front. They looked really good against Baltimore. Protect your guys, take care of business, and just get out of there with a win. The Baltimore win cannot be overstated how important that was, because when you start looking at schedules, when you lose to the Packers week 1 on the road, so you have them again, Thanksgiving's going to be huge, right? But you beat Baltimore, which now forces them to beat Baltimore to kind of hold serve there. You don't have to actually beat them, obviously, but you're kind of going to be playing similar schedules in a lot of these games. And then they lost to the Browns, and you have a chance to one-up them there this week. So I think if you beat the Browns here, you really kind of feel as good as you can competing against a team who's already beat you for the division. So, yeah, super excited, and hopefully a pretty boring game, but in a good way though, right? Like as Lions fans, I'll never get tired of the big wins that you're supposed to win. So
I'd love to see this be one of those, Jacksonville game from last year, the Bears game from this year. Like we put up a 50 burger and give up like 14 points. I would love nothing more than that, especially after having such a high intensity game last week against Baltimore. My heart needs a break. I mean, my heart rate on Sunday or I guess Monday night was going through the roof. But let me ask you this about a specific player, because I think a lot of people honestly don't really have different opinions, because if you're just watching the games, this guy has not been good. Terrion Arnold, and obviously started the Closed on Sunday podcast. Look, all respect to Terrion Arnold. You're wide open on Sundays, homie. I mean, you're just, look. Yeah. I mean, that look, and I think it's cool that he's doing the podcast and everything. He's a first round pick. I'm really rooting for him. He's on my favorite team, first round pick in my favorite team. I think he has intangibles to be a really good player. Kelvin Shepard comes out, says they're going to use Amik a little bit more on the outside. What are your just kind of overall opinions on a guy like Terrion Arnold? Like, do you think, if he comes out this week against Cleveland, against like Jerry Jeudy and Cedric Tillman and these guys, and struggles again, do you think his playing time gets really, really cut? Or do you think they kind of, they let him go a little bit and say, you were our first round pick, we trust you, we're hoping you get better as the season goes on?
Yeah, he's going to get all of this year, I'm sure, at least. Maybe it's slightly different playing time situations, assignments, all that kind of stuff. I'm hesitant to be out on him. I've been like during the games, I'm all the way out and just as frustrated as everybody else, and tweeting crazy about him and all that. So I'm right there too. But then, during the week when I'm a little more rational, it can take time. As a corner, you're at such a disadvantage in the NFL. You don't really have very many true lockdown corners anymore for a reason. So I don't know. I think there could still be improvement there. I think it's things that can be adjusted too. Like he's too grabby, he's too physical, but I'm encouraged. Like he's, for the most part, I know it's happened some recently, but he's not chasing receivers or like way behind plays, right? Like it feels like the positioning's okay. He's just got to get a little better on, little things, turning his head, not grabbing, using his hands to fight better in ways that aren't going to get flagged. I think there's still something there. And I've been really encouraged by this coaching staff with Shepard too. Like I think there's the pieces around him that he's going to have a lot of help in the secondary with really good safeties back there. I think his coaching staff's really good. If it doesn't work, he just never had a chance to begin with. He's going to have everything he needs to be able to improve and develop. So we'll see. There's going to be ups and downs, but I think it is entirely possible by, going into the playoffs this year that we're talking about, he's improved a lot and he's become a big part of the defense. So, yeah, but the frustrations for sure there, but we'll see.
Could you have, and I hate to just like harp on him, because I think there's a chance he's going to end up being a pretty good player, maybe not CB1 level, but could you have picked a worse time to start a podcast? I mean, when you look, and I just saw a video, 1 minute 30 seconds, and I thought this was going to be from last year, this year. It's 1 minute and 30 seconds this year of Terrion Arnold just getting burnt, either PIs or getting burnt.
Yeah.
Look, I'm going to root for him. He's one of my guys, first round pick, but things got to turn around soon. And maybe Patrick Surtain on that podcast, it needs to be like a coaching podcast or something. Or Patrick Surtain just coaches them for.
They should be looking at film on there.
Yeah. But you bring up Kelvin Shepard. That linebacker play against Baltimore was legitimately some of the best linebacker play I've ever seen. And I think Kelvin Shepard being a player and being a linebacker really helps those guys. And Jack Campbell, Derek Barnes, who had a fantastic game, Anzalone, Trevor Nowosky, who had the most impressive play of the whole game, in my opinion, when he was the QB spy. And Lamar tried to leave the pocket, and Trevor Nowosky was there, made a great tackle. What I guess this goes for Kelvin and Johnny Mo. What have your going into the season? What have you? what were your opinions on both Johnny Moe and Kelvin Shepherd, and have they changed as the season went on?
Yeah, I really didn't have a strong opinion on them, and I think a lot of that's a compliment to Dan Campbell. Like I've always kind of believed that this culture, this team, the identity, the strengths, like all this is tied to Campbell and tied to Holmes and the players that he's got. And it's not a slight at at Ben Johnson or at Aaron Glenn. They were really good at their jobs when they were here. But I think a lot of stuff was overblown with when they left. And I think a lot of the credit that's being given now to the coordinators, they do deserve a lot of credit. To me, this just all goes back to Campbell and Holmes. So I think we have coordinators now who've shown, after a short sample size, just a few weeks, but they've assimilated into the system. They know what they're here to do. They do their jobs well. They're being empowered to do those jobs by Holmes and Campbell. So it just feels like it's a great fit again, just like it was with the last coordinators. So yeah, I'm encouraged. I think there are some little differences. I know we're all pretty down on Ben Johnson now, right? But I think John Morton early does a few things I kind of like better in some ways. I think he runs tighter formations, simpler stuff. I think the trick plays are still there, but just in ways that, on a shorter field, you're not spreading the field as much and doing as much. I don't know, maybe a little more conservative in that way, but kind of leaning into the strength of your run game. So yeah, I've really liked what I've seen so far. And it's hard to not look at, especially Shepherd being younger, right? Look at the guys now and say, we're probably looking at future head coaches again at some point, which is, credit to what Campbell's done and Holmes have done.
Yeah, and that's the effect of like you said, like Dan Campbell hiring great coaches. These guys, Kelvin Shepherd and our guy Jeff tweeted it the other day, or I think it was yesterday. I mean, Kelvin Shepherd is going to be up for a head coaching job in a couple of years here. I mean, that's just what happens when you hire great coaches. I mean, he's one of the best young coordinators in all of football. But Shane, Saturday, college football.
Yep.
There's nothing I want more right now than to rot on my couch, throw some money on some games, responsibly, of course, and win some money. And I'm hoping you could help me out with that a little bit today. I have a couple games on my card. I'm curious to hear what you have on yours. You got any?
Yeah, so we can run through real quick. So great week of college football to watch, especially. Michigan State both don't play this week, so locally you're not going to have that. But there are some incredible games this week. So yeah, we'll run through these. I'm going to tweet my full plays later. There's some stuff that I don't think is really worth talking about a ton because, like, I'm on Air Force against Hawaii. Nobody's going to watch that game. I'm not going to watch that game, and I'm betting it. But the big games that everybody's going to be watching, I do like some plays in that. So you want to give yours, or you want to pick the games, or how do you want to rattle through these?
I think if we just read our cards, that'd be good because look, we do a pick'em segment here on Fridays, and we do every single game for NFL, and that's just a losing recipe there. If you're going to make me pick games that I don't have that's not on my card, I'm going to come out with a bad record. So I mean, on the first game on my card, I'm taking Washington with the points at home against Ohio State. When I looked at the spread and I saw 9.5, I had this game probably at like 7, maybe like a touchdown. And when I saw 9.5, I'm taking those 2.5 extra points with Washington at home. I think Ohio State's a great player. I believe this is Saints' first road game. Am I correct?
Texas, yeah, it would have been. I believe.
I mean, Washington has played really good football this year. 8.5 seems like too much to me. I think you could get it up to 9.5, maybe on some sports books, but that's the first game on my card is Washington. Washington plus 8.5.
I'm on the same side there. I think a lot of, and I'm biased, right? I'm a Michigan fan, so I always give that disclaimer too. I'd love to see Ohio State lose. But I think this is a good matchup for Washington. A lot of what you think of Ohio State depends on what you think of Texas, and Texas hasn't looked good since the Ohio State game. So, too early to say, but are we looking at Ohio State, Texas as just being a super overhyped game? Right. Big stat here though. Washington, West Coast, now that the Big Ten has expanded, right? Big Ten teams that travel to the West Coast don't do well against the spread. So power stat I got here, right? So I'm just going to read this quote. each of the 14 Big Ten teams outside of the Pacific time zone has one game on the West Coast this season. Traditional Big Ten teams had trouble against the Pac-12 on the West Coast before USC, UCLA, Washington, and Oregon joined the Big Ten. So since 2024, when these teams joined the Big Ten, or just since 2024, these schools are 3-11 straight up when traveling to former Pac-12 schools. 1-3 record for ranked teams. Number 10, Michigan lost at Washington. Ohio State and Illinois lost at Oregon. Penn State has the only victory, and they won by 3 against USC. So
That's exactly what I wanted to hear.
yeah, these Big Ten teams who travel to the West Coast, especially ranked teams, don't do well against the spread and straight up lose a lot of games. So I think there's a really real chance Washington actually just wins the game. Super underrated roster. So yeah, I'm excited to see this one.
Here's a game that I think is interesting. I think the total is interesting. I don't think this total for the game will be on your card because I think you would have to be a sicko to do it, but I might. I'm looking at this and saying these two words should not be in the same sentence. I kind of like this over in the Iowa game, Iowa, Indiana.
Okay.
Iowa gave up 28 points to Rutgers last week. They put up 38. I mean, this is, look, the Iowa offense is better than it has been in years past. It's still not good, but I think Indiana scores out the wazoo. I think they have the ability to put up, 30, 40 points. I know Iowa's defense is pretty good, but I'm looking at that total, and I think a lot of people are going to look at it. And sometimes this bites me in the ass when I think about this in gambling. I think a lot of people are going to look at 48.5 and say, that's too high for an Iowa game.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the way I think. I think 48.5, that's way too fucking high. I'm taking the over there.
Yeah. Kind of go contrarian, against the grain a little bit. I like that. Yeah, I think it's gonna be an interesting game. If Cignetti has the chance to put up tons of points too, he's gonna do it.
Mm-hmm.
He's an absolute lunatic, and so that's gonna be a more fun, kind of more electric, Iowa Indiana game than we've probably ever seen. But than we're used to. So yeah.
What else do you got on your card?
Illinois plus 6.5 against USC. I think it's so gross. I kind of want to take that. Illinois is off a huge loss. USC has looked really good, and it's kind of a buy low, sell high spot. So I'll take the points for a home team. Ole Miss LSU is going to be a great game. Whit Weeks, linebacker for LSU, is piping Lane Kiffin's daughter. Have you seen all that?
Yeah.
So revenge spot, as a dad, I can relate to that part. So I'll take the home team there. I'll take Ole Miss. I think that's going to be a really good, close game. Give me Lane Kiffin revenge game there. Oregon, Penn State is a huge Big Ten game. Oregon plus 3.5. Drew Aller in a big game. James Franklin in a big game. To me, this is Oregon for sure. I think they quietly have maybe one of the best rosters. Is maybe the best roster in football. We're going to look at Georgia, Bama. Like a lot of these teams that have historically had incredible rosters are kind of down right now. Oregon's legit. And I think over a field goal there, I'll take Oregon in that big game.
I love it as well. That's on my card as well.
Yep. And then the last big game I have is Bama, Georgia. And this feels like both of these teams, it's still a really big game. Both teams kind of feel vulnerable to me in a way that we're not really used to seeing. And this kind of, is a big picture conversation. This kind of represents my view that the SEC is kind of regressing since NIL was implemented. And I know the lazy take is, well, now that everybody can pay their players, I think there is something though to these Big Ten schools, northern schools with bigger alumni bases, more money behind them. Like we've seen that with Michigan already going in Underwood, right? Some of these guys, Georgia, it's like, oh, we have an alum who has a used car dealership and he pays for players. It's like now that NIL is a thing, I think you've kind of seen that advantage go away or flatten out a little bit. I think the SEC in general regressing is kind of a theme I'm watching, it feels like. But Kirby Smart against Bama, he's 1-6 against Bama. I know a lot of that was Saban, but he went 0-1 against DeBoer last year. So I'll probably take Bama in that spot.
Love it. I was waiting for you to say that, man. I'm all over Bama today. I'm all over Bama. And in Athens, and Georgia's only a 2.5 point favorite. I love it. And I think everybody's so down on Alabama right now. I love Alabama with the points. Might even take a money line. I'm looking at that over as well. This is not the same Georgia defense we have seen these past couple years. They don't have first-round NFL talent anymore on this defense. 54.5, that's a total I'm looking at. But Shane, man, thank you so much for joining the show, talking Tigers, Lions, and your college football picks. Make sure to go follow Shane on Twitter at Michigan Hats. He's the man. Shane, it was great to talk to you, man. Hope you have a great Saturday.
You too, man. Have a great week. Thanks for the invite.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. He's the man at Michigan Hats. And I see a couple of people in the chat talking about gambling. Obviously, only gamble if you gamble responsibly, obviously, and only gamble what you are comfortable with losing. Because it's not an easy thing to do, but obviously, always gamble responsibly. It is 10 o'clock here, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed those guests because, I mean, Shane is a guy I've been really looking forward to have on the show, and I think he did a great job. He is the man, always a guy I love to hear his opinions on. And Chris, you know what you're getting out of Chris. He's Mr. Consistency. He's the man. I mean, he's the best in the business. So, guys, thank you all for tuning in. I believe we will have Gentry back on next week. Make sure to like this stream. Make sure to subscribe. Thank you guys so much for 15,000 subscribers. That is so huge for the boys. It is. We just appreciate your love and support so much. I couldn't believe it. I was driving home from work and I saw the boys were doing like a little live show until they got to 15,000. I couldn't believe it. I was ecstatic. Had to join up for that. So that's really awesome. Make sure to follow us on all of our socials as well. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all that stuff. And we'll be back live Sunday for Detroit Lions versus Cleveland Browns. Pre-game, watch party, post-game. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. And I hope everybody has a great Saturday. Peace out.